Aitäh Sailale.
Thank you, Saila. Now, word over to Kadri Vider, who is the anchor point, so to speak. She is from the Center of Estonian Language Resources, and she is the main contact person in Estonia for this project. And she will be talking to us about Estonian language in the digital era. Greetings, everybody. The title of my presentation is the same as the title of a book, Estonian in the Digital Era. I am one of the authors of this book, and that same MetaNet that Andres mentioned, it's a publication within the framework of that initiative. This book was published in 2012, and it describes the situation before the year 2012, of course. It talks about how was the situation with the digital and technological support for the Estonian language. So by now the situation has changed, it has improved. I have it on paper. I have one copy, but of course it is also available digitally, and everybody can have access to it. You see the link for it here on the slide, and it's available at our National Library, and it is also available there in digital form. Plus there are several other places where you can access it, so if you can't have it on paper, you can always download it. But so much for the title. And now a few words about my background. Since about 1995, I have been looking at how computers could better manage with the Estonian language. I have worked in several different positions, but basically computer linguistics, language technology, those are the fields in which I have been active. Right now I work for the University of Tartu. I am there as a fellow of language technology, and I am also the head of the Center of Estonian Language Resources. I will be talking more about what we do, but we also have our banner rolled up to the left of the screen. But for starters, perhaps I should talk about language technology. What is it? As I mentioned, my background is precisely in computer linguistics. That means I am from the philology side of things, from the language theory side of things. So since we have a lot of people who are active in translation here, I suppose we have a lot of the familiar background when it comes to languages and language theory. So perhaps your perception of language as a phenomenon is similar to mine. I am also very much interested in technology. So when I speak to IT students, for example, and talk to them about language technology, then I talk about the philosophical topic of language and IT. How are they connected? And I take as a point of departure that the human language is first and foremost a means of communication. So I ask you all to, and I asked all the IT students to shut their laptops because they always have their laptops open. And then I do a little test for them when they have their laptops closed. I ask them, what language is your computer environment in? What language is it that you communicate with your computer with? And we have this system of clickers. They can push a button to interactively give me a response right away. And then I get the visual on the screen right away. So they see a graph of how people use the computer and what language they use their computers. And here we're talking about natural human language, not computer languages. So the question is, what language is it that you use on your computer? And of course there is an I don't understand option on the clicker, and I have to say it's not used that often. Unfortunately, the answer Estonian shows up quite rarely. Of course, English is the most prevalent one. And a very common answer is also, I don't remember. Because people don't remember. Because when you start thinking about it, what language is your computer in? You might not perceive it or think about it that much, and you might not remember it if you're prompted by a question like that. But this is an issue of localization. I suppose you have also had contact with the topic of localization in your translation activities. So that's the top layer of communication with the computer, what language the platforms are in. But software, Estonianization, that's not exactly language technology. That can be done without more specific knowledge about the language as such, about the human natural language. But of course it is a part of native language computer communication. Then I talked about why I like language technology. The quote here says, "A person can't beat a machine." And it is in a dialect, it is sort of a joke. So the joke is that an old lady went into a church, the organ started playing, and she was 3 verses behind the music, and she said, well, a person can't beat a machine. But I think that holds the key to why, in my opinion, language technology is cool. Machines don't understand meaning. In Estonian, they say that I am fed up every day, but unfortunately this joke here does not translate very well. The meaning is that, of course, there are so many different meanings to whatever is said, and I'm very curious about how this particularly was translated. I will ask about it later. But anyway, machines don't recognize the nuances behind what people say. Because meaning isn't only words, it's not only phrases, it's an analysis of our language forms. And this is the first obstacle that that machine technology comes up against. Estonian has it's very multifaceted in form analysis. There is a citation here also from children's or a poem about children. where the quote is about children running in dewy grass. But if you put this into a computer and let the computer analyze it, of course the computer knows what kind of declensions, conjugations there are, and the computer analyzes the quote such. And the system might ask whether the word jooksime has to do with running or with drinking, because it both could be possible. And here we could say the opposite. The machines can't beat people because machines do not, in the end, know how to analyze significance. Of course, this is something that is constantly worked on, and this is at the essence of a search for artificial intelligence, how to make machines understand meaning. But this, in essence, is why language technology, in my opinion, is very cool. Now, to look at the systematic side, language technology in the context of info technology connects with things such as statistics, computer science, artificial intelligence, machines, signalization, and linguistics. So to look at it more narrowly, language technology deals with natural language processing, not programming language processing or artificial languages. It deals with natural languages. Now, technological support for languages. What are we talking about then? We are talking about language processing means, technologies, and applications. More narrowly, this means terms such as speech recognition, speech synthesis, grammatical analysis, semantic analysis, language generation, and machine translation. These are the more narrow fields that language technology looks at. Now, from that book that I showed you earlier, which gives a very good overview of what language technology is, I have a picture. And in my opinion, I think it summarizes quite well the language analysis and the language processing process as such, because there is this input here. If I can get this laser to work. Do you know if there's a laser pointer on this device? So there's input here. First you have the text or speech input. Then you have the input processing. You have the speech signal processing, or if it's a text input, written text. It can be written text, form processing. Then there's recognition. Linguistically, it means recognizing units of meaning. And if it's speech, that's recognizing sounds. If it's text, then it's recognizing words or parts of words, morphemes. And here's the blackest of the boxes, understanding natural language and dialogue. So to understand this language input, you have to understand it and then generate the other side of this process, or generate that dialogue or response for that one language act. And then we move on to phonetic aspects and intonation planning. So moving on from understanding the natural speech, The machine selects some words that they know, then they select the form, which declensions, which conjugations to use, and then they use then they find the phonetic correspondence. If it's speech or if it's text, then it selects style in which it formats the output text. And then you have this speech synthesis or text synthesis, depending on the input then. And if it's a speech, then you have a speech synthesizer that actually sounds out the words. And in the end, what is formed is the speech output. So that's the big picture of what language technology should manage. Mark later on will tell you in more detail about one part of language technology, which is machine translation. Now, when it comes to Estonian, in more detail, we have a language development program, which is great, and we have a language law, which puts us in quite a good position. Our language policy is something that has been looked at quite a lot, because there are very few Estonian language speakers, and obviously we need help from our own market, so to speak. We can't depend on Europe alone. And this language development plan has a measure for language technological support development, which means and the objective is that language technological support would be on par with more developed countries, for example, Nordic countries. And that Estonian would develop fast enough so that as software develops, for example, we could cope with that. And more significant technological directions, for example, speech synthesis, that's in the plan. Speech synthesis is something we have been working on for about 10 or 15 years here in Estonia. It's becoming more and more natural. One of the best applications right now for it, in my opinion, is that are in our public broadcasting. The TV channels, you can choose subtitles. And the subtitles are read out loud. So that's a feature that you can use in our public broadcasting. Now, speech recognition is something that people are really looking forward to. It does exist to a certain degree. The Tallinn Technical University's Cybernetics Institute is working on that. But the result really depends on the quality of the input. So background noise is something that affects it. People talking at the same time, that poses a problem. People not speaking clearly enough is a problem. But if all those problems are eliminated, then it works quite all right. And we have the prototype for that. A machine translation prototypes, those need to be developed. And these are all objectives in our language development program. And in order to fulfill the objectives, we have the national program, Estonian Language Technology. And I recommend that you all look at this website, keeletehnoloogia.ee. It's available in Estonian as well as in English quite well. And here you can find out more information about what kinds of projects are underway right now and which have been completed, where we have results. This is funded by our state, and it's very important that the results of this program are basically all available and they are free to use. And this free means that they are basically free. The funding party is not putting any limitations on the usage. unless as input there is a text that cannot be spread, but basically the state is very much interested in these results being used. So open source and open data, these are important terms when it comes to the end results of this project. It is a research development program, which means that it doesn't have to have end user products, so to speak, at the end. They might happen at the end. We do have scientists who are very much capable of developing these things, the IT developments. However, oftentimes they end up at the prototype level. An interesting problem was given to the scientists. They came up with a solution of how to use it, and the actual using part of it is not their deal anymore. So we don't have end results for meeting the objectives of the development plan. However, on the other hand, we would really like it if the results of these programs, of this language technology program, would be used. And why am I saying we? Because I'm also in the steering committee of this program, and the Estonian Language Resource Center is the instance that stores and makes available the results of these programs. And here you can see our yearly financing. It's I'm not proposing that you apply to the program, but I'm just giving an overview of what is looked at. Blue is software projects, red is language resources, linguistic data. And right now that is getting a lot of focus. Language resources within this program, it means all the data that we have. For example, the translation memories or the terminology that you use in your work. In our opinion, or from our aspect, it's a resource. It's something that we use in language software. To gather these resources and to annotate them, to carry out form analysis, and to markate them or evaluate them, all this linguistic data that we can gather from someplace on a daily basis, that's where the money goes, basically. Now, what kinds of programs do we have within these initiatives? We have language corpora for language technology. That's also a term for our field. What does it mean, language corpora? It means data and text in natural language. So this means newspaper articles, online comments. It all makes up this language corpora. Speech corpora can include radio shows, for example. But it might be also just dialogues that have been recorded at home on daily topics. So the contents of this corpora, that's one thing. But it also varies what kind of genres they're from. So language technology, that's speech synthesis, basically. Morphology and syntax is something we look at. semantics and pragmatics, the meaning of words, machine translation, and all the data that is involved. Mark will talk about that later. But the machine translation data is not that different from a monolingual corpora. But machine translation corpora has a corresponding term in the other language. So it can be lexicon, terminology. But in any case, it connects to another language. The interpreter apologizes, cannot hear without a microphone. Okay, I'll leave it up to Mark to explain that. But I will talk more generally about what the projects contain. So glossaries, language help. Glossaries not only between two languages, but also monolingual glossaries, terminology glossaries, cooperation projects to integrate language technology into applications. For example, I mentioned the public broadcasting systems feature where you can have subtitles read out loud. It also got its start here. Now, a few words also about the Center of Estonian Language Resources. Why am I here and why am I involved in this European initiative? Why are we partners? The objectives of our center are quite manifold. First is to maintain and grant access to the Estonian digital language assets. And this is described in more detail with our national program. We are also a research network for humanitarian sciences. So we are gathering also information about these texts so that they can be used for research purposes. And we are also part of the Clarin network, Clarin-ERC network. It's a pan-European language resource and language technology network. It's a research network. Why am I emphasizing the research part? Because it's mostly researchers, scientists who are clients for Clarin. Another objective is to maintain a functional language technology network so that the language technology would also reach the public sector. So we would have an end product that we could use in the end. And here's a slide about who and where, what's going on. In our consortium, we have the University of Tartu, their computer linguists and linguists in general, text corpora, interpreting corpora, language analysis, machine translation, dialogue systems. The Estonian Language Institute looks more at glossaries, lexicons, and then at the Tallinn Technical University's Cybernetics Institute, they look at speech technology, speech corpora. They also have speech recognition online, and they have a mobile solution for it as well. Kadri is the coordinator of our national language program, and she is also in the Center of Estonian Language Resources team. Kadri, where are you? Show yourself. She's sitting at a desk right now, unfortunately. You can't see her. But in any case, she is a very nice and helpful person, and she can help with what we want from you. And here's a slide about how the CELR, the Center of Estonian Language Resources, functions. This shows how we are connected to data exchanges and the Clarin network. So the CELR in the European context, the first partner we have is Clarin, as I mentioned. And it has a lot of support, and it's meant for researchers. So Clarin is the one who is actually providing very strong support for users, and it includes centers all over Europe. And we, for example, are the Clarin Center in Estonia. Then there are the Meta initiatives. That's another network that we are involved in. This report I mentioned is a MetaNet publication, for example. It's a network of repositories. And something that comes along with both networks is that also foreign resources are available for us. They're accessible and we can compare them. And our own resources are more visible on an international arena. Now, a few more words about Clarin. It was a European research project, but it changed form in the European Union, and it became the European Research Infrastructure Consortium, ERIC. Right now, 15 European member states are members of ERIC, and I can't keep track of it because there are more and more joining all the time, which is great. And the Estonian national coordinator is myself. But now, why am I here? Because in this European MTREC initiative, the Estonian Center is the partner who is helping gather the data that should help this machine translation. And this data could be in your institutions or in your companies. And it's basically the gathering of language resources. The process itself, how does it work? We first contact the owners of the existing language resources. We evaluate the quality of these resources. So we're not assessing them like an A, B, or C grade in the end. We are looking at what we have, we are evaluating it, and thinking about how it could more specifically help improve machine translation tasks. If the data then goes into the big machine translation machine, so to speak, we can also provide the machine translation professional with information about what this data is, what it is like, so that those who use the machine translation could have a better idea of how to use the data that we have given them. Another thing we do is usage and license agreements. It may happen that these data, these translation memories, your documents that are in several languages, they may have some user terms, may have some limitations. So agreements have to be made, and that's what the CELR also does. Another activity of ours is registration. We say, we have this set of data, let's record it. And then, once you have submitted the data for us, you are also registered. Metadata is what is recorded about the format of the resource, for example, as well. So that's the kinds of things that we do. And that's what we would like to know when it comes down to actually gathering the data. Now, what next? What is done with the metadata and the resources themselves, depending on how the usage has been agreed? Our language resources are open source. They have open access. However, this does not mean that your data is automatically available to everyone. But the idea is that access should be as open as possible, and we don't even ask for any money. And we don't give any money either, for that matter. So we are not in a business. So data is recorded in a registry, even if it is not freely accessible. And we can also allocate a DOI number to research data. So it's a registry indicator, basically, that is tied to the data. And also license information is tied to each corpora of data that is given to us. And here you have 2 links with more precise information about access. Another good thing about our registry is that users can be authenticated and authorized through TAAT. And this is another feature or a trick in the research world. So it's the research authentication and authorization infrastructure, TAAT. And has to do with research and education data network. ETIS is another application in this network. But the point of TAAT is that it mediates between institutions and services. It mediates the access. For example, if I am at the University of Tartu, I am a worker there, I am studying there, I have the Tartu University user account, then through TAAT, I can get into all kinds of services that have to do with that as a service provider. So what is it good for? For example, you can authenticate yourself, because in the end, the ID card authentication is similar. But with an ID card, you don't get a label of a researcher right away. So TAAT, it assigns you a value of a researcher or of a scientist, and that grants you more access to certain data. And you don't have to be in your universities or institutions network, so that's the idea. And since TAAT is connected to other federations that are similar across Europe, then Clarin members across Europe also have access to our services. That probably is of no relevance for you, but just so you know that it is possible to give us data and not have it openly be available for everybody, but be available for research. There is this feature that it's not widely open, but it's only open to the data that you give us. And here are the web services that we at CELR provide. We are constantly developing new ones, but the ready-to-use ones are listed here. We have the registry that I mentioned, the MetaShare. So everybody who has given us data, who has been registered, is available here. Then we have the repository where all the data is kept. Then we have the Corpora request service, Corp, a code storage GitLab, and then we have language games. And this is quite a fun catalog of language-related games. For example, Alias is a game. Alias is a game that is available there. It has to do with word explanation, word description, and you have to guess the word. And we are definitely not a one-time project. We are quite sustainable. We have competent workers with all our consortium partners, and we have physical network that is in accordance with the requirements of a modern digital archive. So if any information that you have, we are happy to receive it. That would be all from me. Thank you.